Good morning, it's August 25th. This is to my liberal friends. You know, there's an old adage about what goes around comes around, and boy, it can be funny. It wasn't long ago that New York Attorney General Letitia James brought charges against Donald Trump on what she called mortgage fraud. According to her charges, he inflated the value of some assets, particularly Mar-a-Lago, in order to get favorable terms on a loan from a bank. The bank looked at the assets, devalued them themselves, made the loan. The loan was repaid in full. Everyone involved in the transaction was happy, but Ms. James wanted to make a political point since she had campaigned on going after and prosecuting Donald Trump. No part of the legal system should be built on going after a private citizen as part of your campaign. But Democrats cheered her on, and the judge at the trial signed a $500 million fine to Trump. He smiled for the camera and probably patted himself on the back. This past week, the appeals court let the conviction stand, probably should have dismissed it, but eliminated the egregious fine. The entire case was political theater. But now it appears that some of the Democrats that went after Trump with a constant drumbeat have fudged on some real estate documents themselves, including Ms. James. Remember when Congressman Adam Schiff, Democrat of California and now Senator, claimed that he had conclusive evidence that Trump colluded with the Russian operatives to try and influence the 2016 election? Of course, he never produced the evidence, despite being asked to on multiple occasions. Well, Mr. Schiff's in a bit of hot water himself. A grand jury in Maryland is weighing criminal indictments for Schiff over alleged mortgage fraud, mail fraud, bank fraud, and false statements to financial institutions that were uncovered by the Federal Housing Finance Authority, claiming he certified both a Maryland property and a California condominium as his primary residence for tax and mortgage purposes. Wow, he's elected in California, claims his residence in Maryland, but he also wants to reside in California because he has to. To better understand this issue, where I live in Utah, you get a big tax break on your primary residence. You're taxed at 55% of its assessed value. If you have a second home, then the highest value one's taxed at the full rate. And that can equate to a lot of dollars. So Senator Schiff decided the assessors in Maryland would not know about the home in California and vice versa. Voila, he gets the tax break in both states. And you also get a lower mortgage rate on your primary home as opposed to a second home. Well, this past Sunday morning, Schiff was on NBC's Meet the Press and denied he had committed mortgage fraud. But once again, he produced no evidence to support his claim that he was on the up and up, probably because he has none. All he would have to do is produce the mortgage application documents and it would show the truth. Moving on to Ms. James, it seems she lives in two places at once as well. In 2023, bank documents show that she claimed a home in Virginia as her principal residence. This is interesting because she's an elected official in New York and has to reside in the state of New York. A grand jury in Eastern Virginia is reviewing the evidence. Apparently, Ms. James made some false statements on property records, including a loan application document, indicating that the property she was purchasing in Virginia would be her primary residence. But she's been crafty in other mortgage deals. Back in New York, she owns a multifamily Brooklyn property where she incorrectly listed the number of residents in the building. The mortgage application also falsely stated that Letitia James was her father's spouse. That's really rich. Oh, getting caught with your hand in a cookie jar is not as much fun. Abby Lowell, a powerhouse lawyer retained by the James office and who previously represented Hunter Biden, acknowledged there were, quote, insignificant mistakes on lines in some records in a letter to the Attorney General of the United States, Janet Bondi, asking her to close the criminal referral last month. Mr. Lowell has not tried to explain away the mortgage problems in Virginia. Then we have the case of Lisa Cook. She was appointed to the Federal Reserve Board by President Joe Biden. What is rich is that she is part of the group that determines the mortgage rates as well as other interest rates for the rest of us normal citizens. It seems Ms. Cook listed two properties as her primary residence, one in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and another in Atlanta, Georgia. In both cases, that allowed her to get favorable mortgage terms. Lisa Cook was part of Joe Biden's blatant DEI program where he was hell-bent to appoint people to key positions based on race, gender, and sexual identity over merit. Now, I'm not saying Ms. Cook's not qualified, but it begs the question if she mentioned those two primary residents when she was being vetted for the Fed position. In an extraordinary puff piece over the weekend, the New York Times framed the allegations against Cook as a racist anti-DEI purge when the first black female Fed governor, decrying attacks that focused on her property ownership, given that black Americans are nearly 40% less likely than white Americans to own homes. The Times also referred to Cook's best-known academic paper that showed how lynchings and other violence against black Americans in the late 19th and early 20th century reduced the number of patents they filed. Now, I'm not sure how that's relevant, and it really does escape me. It's good to read, but it has nothing to do with whether she committed mortgage fraud or not. Cook is either guilty or innocent of mortgage fraud, and the color of her skin is irrelevant, just as Schiff's and James' guilt or innocence has nothing to do with how much they hate Trump. All they have to do is produce the documents, show the mortgage documents, and they can prove their innocence or guilt. But you have to admit it's amusing to watch these people being hoisted by their own petard when they engaged in activities that they cheered Mr. Trump for being prosecuted. This has been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.